Welcome to TSW News. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy our latest videos and updates. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, has sparked controversy yet again after coming under fire for accepting £20,000 in donations to fund his son's education. In an article, it states that when he was asked about these donations, Starmer said that around £20,000 he had declared from Ali for unspecified accommodation was for his teenager to study for exams in a peaceful atmosphere. While the then Labour leader was overwhelmed with media attention in the run-up to the election, my boy, 16, was in the middle of his GCSEs. I made him a promise that he would be able to get to his school to do his exams without being disturbed. We have lots of journalists outside our house where we live, and I'm not complaining about that. That's fine. But if you are a 16-year-old trying to do your GCSEs and it's your one chance in life, I promised him we would move somewhere, get out of the house, and go somewhere where he could be peacefully studying. Somebody then offered me accommodation where we could do that. I took that up, and it was the right thing to do. Asked whether he would like to apologise for the row, he told LBC, "I'm not going to apologise for not doing anything wrong." The Prime Minister also opened up about life inside Number 10 following Labour's takeover in July. "It has been tough for the kids. I'm not pleading a special case, but they are 16 and 13. That's an important time." The row over declarations by MPs and senior ministers had threatened to overshadow the Labour conference, with criticism aimed at both the Prime Minister and his ministers for accepting luxury gifts from wealthy donors while announcing cuts to the winter fuel allowance. Starmer has said ministers will no longer take donations for clothing now they're in government, but left the door open to receiving more access to events, such as the £4,000 worth of tickets to a Taylor Swift concert he accepted from the Premier League. Asked whether he would rule out accepting such gifts in the future, he told ITV's Good Morning Britain, "I think that's a matter of judgment. There has to be good reason." At the same time, Keir Starmer's government is removing a VAT exemption from private schools, affecting possibly thousands of other children's education, including those with special needs. So a new bill was proposed at the end of July to remove the VAT exemption from private schools. And I quote, "UK's private schools will see removal of VAT exemption from January 2025. The government has published its proposals to remove VAT exemption and charitable rate relief to private schools. As set out in the Labour manifesto, the government has published its plans to remove the VAT exemption for private schools across the UK. The draft legislation, a corresponding explanatory note, and a technical note on applying VAT to private school fees have been provided. The government's proposals state that from the 1st of January 2025, all education services and vocational training supplied by a private school or a connected person for a charge will be subject to a VAT at the standard rate of 20%. Boarding services closely related to such a supply will also be subject to 20% VAT. To prevent the prepayment of fees in order to avoid this additional tax, The government has stated that any fees paid from the 29th of July 2024 pertaining to the term starting in January 2025 onwards will be subject to VAT. Concerns had been raised by some in the charity sector that the proposals would negatively impact special educational needs, SEND schools, and pupils. To address these concerns, the government's technical note clearly states that it is committed to ensuring that those with the most accurate SEN are not impacted. The technical note also states where pupils are placed in a private school because their needs cannot be met in the state sector and they have their places funded by their local authority, a devolved government or a non-departmental public body, their funder will be compensated for the VAT they incur on these pupil fees. However, parents who chose to send children to private school whose needs can be met in the state sector will be subject to a VAT on their school fees. The Treasury has opened a 7-week consultation closing on the 15th of September, which is now gone, with a list of questions. And so there you have it. This has sparked controversy because you see Keir Starmer accepting private donations from private sponsors of himself and his family for £20,000 to protect his son's education from being disrupted. And yet he's more than happy to disrupt possibly thousands of other children, forcing the closure of many private establishments who are at this minute meeting the needs of children who have special needs. And he doesn't care about it. You know, there's no real regard, yet he's protecting his child. Now, with all due respect, yes, he's the Prime Minister of the UK. It comes with its own perks and its own private benefits, such as fancy, private boxes at football matches and Taylor Swift concerts, whatnot. But you can see that he has no regard for the pensioners and he has no regard for children, especially children who have special needs. Keir Starmer has also been accused of rushing these changes and rushing the removal of these exemption VAT charges. As it's stated here, the government has been accused of rushing plans to remove the VAT exemption from private schools with an impact assessment just weeks before the policy comes into effect. So the policy is meant to come into effect January 2025. From January, Labour will scrap the VAT exemption and business rates relief for private schools in a bid to fund 6,500 new teachers in state schools. However, the government has been accused of rushing the implementation of this change, with Shadow Education Secretary Damien Hines pointing out an impact assessment on the likely consequences has yet to be published. Responding to a written question, Treasury Minister James Murray confirmed that details of the government's assessment of the expected impacts of these policy changes will be published at the budget on the 30th of October. This is only 2 months before the policy is due to come into effect on the 1st of January 2025 and will likely include details of whether schools will be forced to increase their fees or face the possibility of closure. Mr. Hines told Sky News the government is rushing the implementation of this change. The Shadow Education Secretary said they are seeking to introduce this tax partway through an academic year, having given no impact assessment on the likely consequences of the changes on either the private or the state sector, nor how this will impact pupils with special needs or from a minority religious background. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe on the channel if you enjoyed this video. Goodbye for now. TSW News.